what do you see the city's role, especially with the new funding sources that are coming from the feds, to actually support and augment the important violence prevention work that has been put in place with Measure Y?
Well, thank you. And first of all, I want to thank you for your work. Measure Y has been a difficult, it's a new thing. It was very, and first of all, you know, there's going to be a lot of criticism of what happened, didn't happen, but we're really inventing a new thing here, and I think that's why we got the $3 million and what the Attorney General saw. That this is one of the closest collaborations between community-based, geographic-based policing and prevention groups and neighborhoods. And I would say there's three components in reducing violence. I mean, violence is still high in the city. So I will never deny that. I had my purse snatched. My daughter worked very closely with the young man who was just murdered, and it was in the Tribune. She was part of her leadership group. She's a youth worker like many of you. And every death is one, when I was a school board member, I went to so many funerals, is one that we have to mourn over. But the trend in the city, at least this year, I've been watching the stats, this year, it looks like the numbers are going to be much less. And I started my political career as a mom who wanted to save music, walked on the school board 20 years ago, and that was the year that we had the most murders. 175 young people died on the streets of Oakland that year because of the crack epidemic. That is, one every 2 days was shot and killed in this city. And so I've seen the worst times, I've seen some hope, and that's what I call this period. This is a period of some hope, that even though we certainly have had some pretty sad incidents this year, the fact that we're probably going to end this year with less than 100 deaths for the first time in a long, long time, probably 6-7 years, and that the feel and the buzz on the street is just where we've gotten to some hope, and that's why the Measure Y programs are so important, because so many of them, that now that we've more fine-tuned, and they're really now focused on the kids who are most in trouble. The 500 kids who get arrested and are in the public schools every year, the kids coming back out of juvenile hall, and the kids at the school district are saying that they're 200 most problematic students. So it's not like you guys are getting softballs either. You're getting some of the toughest kids, the kids who are most in trouble, and that we're making a difference with them, is one of the major reasons I think that crime is down and why murders are down in this city. So I want to thank you for your work. So what's the city's role? The city's role has to be to use this balanced approach. And when I talk about the balanced approach, that is police officers who know this community better. That is more geographic deployment. That's why when I wrote Measure Y, I didn't just put 63 cops. I said beat cops. Cops who will get out of their car, will get to know the neighborhood. And this year, we're supposed to have been visiting every school. That's a policy that I helped get involved, because a lot of young people have never had a positive experience with the police officers. Probably just did a study. I didn't get a chance to read it all, but it was interesting. It showed that some kids saw the police to protect and serve, and some kids see the cops as harassing them. And it was pretty equally divided, not unlike a study that the chief himself took, where he said that 40% of Oaklanders don't trust the police completely. And so we've got to build a relationship with our police. Unfortunately, 80% of them live outside of the city of Oakland. And so we need to recruit more Oakland kids to be police officers. I want to grow my own, right? And we have to develop then a relationship between, I think the good thing is the new officers tend to be more ethnically diverse. They were trained under community policing. They're much more willing to engage with the community. So having that community component, that is organizing the neighborhood councils to support the schools and to work with the police, is pretty critical to me. And that's, to me, very critical part. And so there's a part of the city budget you may not be paying attention to, but one of the other major candidates would eliminate all the neighborhood service coordinators to just protect police. And to me, that's silly, because it's that partnership of the community with the police that makes a difference. Secondly, we have to protect the intervention programs. I got to tell you, when we first passed Measure Y, I had a lot of officers who were very sort of oh, well, we'll take the money, but they didn't really see that there'd be a good relationship. And some of you didn't particularly have a great relationship with the police either. But it has changed over the last 3 years. You now have, we recently had this gang summit, you had some pretty tough cops out there saying, yeah, we really need these gang and prevention and these major-wide programs. That would not have happened 4 years ago when we started this journey down the road together. But I think it's the mutual success, seeing that we've been able to turn around a lot of kids, has changed attitudes on both sides. We cannot afford to lose this. That's what the Attorney General saw when he came here, and that's why we got the extra $3 million. So I beg you, you need to go out and tell your story in the next 6 weeks. You need to tell people how you've been saving kids around the city one by one. And so,
can you talk a little bit about what you would do as mayor to address the commonplace availability of guns in our community?
You know, we've done all of the sort of, Oakland's been a leader in doing sort of all the legislative things. So we worked actually with one of the other candidates on handguns legislation to try to ban, assault rifles. So it's still an amazing number of assault rifles being used. So they're illegal. You can't have them. We worked on the state legislation. There's been attempts to roll that back nationally. We have this new Supreme Court decision that we all have to think about. We have regulated gun stores, the formal gun stores, and have are now fighting to maintain our ban on these gun fairs within the city of Oakland. And so so the guns aren't coming from regular stores in Oakland. They're not even coming from these gun shows right now. They are coming from the underground market and from nearby cities. And so that is a much more difficult thing to regulate. The police have been doing these probation sweeps on making sure that people on probation don't have guns, but that's pretty controversial too. But they have been doing that and picking up a lot of, when you hear about these big sweeps and arrests, when people are arrested, it's a lot because they're on probation and they have guns. And so they've been trying to do that. I actually think we're going to have to talk to young people more because the flood of guns, the illegal guns, even though we're going to be working really hard on the new gang task force to particularly target the people who are marketing the illegal handguns in the city, I think that's only going to be half the answer. I think the other answer has to be really the other violence prevention programs that we've been talking about. And so that is everything from the curriculum, conflict resolution curriculum that we're doing in the schools, teaching young people different ways of resolving conflict. But it also, I think, has to be along the kind of education that groups like Teens on Target have talked about, and with young people in terms of just the danger of the guns. It has to be around parent education. I can't tell you as a school board member how many times a kid was suspended and or a kid was accidentally shot by a friend because their parents didn't have a gun lock, which is required in Oakland, on their gun and left it out, and the kids got their hands on it. So it's a very complex problem. I think, though, that as long as culturally people think it's okay to resolve issues with violence, and that people don't have other ways to resolve issues, that just having these laws to make guns illegal, or I can't say that was a Supreme Court decision, but at least limiting the number of guns and their availability, the cheaper guns, that alone is not going to do it.
And in the event that Measure BB does not pass, can you say what your commitment is to backfill funding for existing Measure-wide providers with these new monies that have come from the feds?
Well, I think that's absolutely commitment. It's only for these programs. Unfortunately, it's for a narrower range of programs, and they like particularly the street outreach and the gang intervention components. So some of these other parts, and you know that I started a lot of the initial work around sexually exploited minors, and found some of the first funding and made sure that Measure Y funded the funds, for instance, for that program for sexually exploited minors. I'll just be out there raising money like crazy for that. Also, a lot of the intervention programs at the schools would be unfunded, and the money particularly for maybe we might have some opportunity to get money for the really young children. The program I talked about in preschools that we're running for kids who are either victims of domestic violence or have had deaths and murders in their families. A lot of those things I don't think would be funded under the federal grant. So those are the ones that we'll have to make a commitment to, and those are monies that I helped raise even before Measure Y was passed. Those are programs that I would fight for if I'm elected as mayor.